All right, streamers, welcome to the show. We've got some special people on. At least they think they're special. We got Von Clean from Force Science, and we've got Travis Yates from I don't know. What do you call that, Travis? These days, what do you? I never know what you're doing these days. So the courageous police leader always comes to mind, but you've got a lot more going on than that. So
That's a good umbrella. Just say that. Leadership's
all right,
everything.
all right. So we've got people are going to be logging in on the stream. On it looks well. We're on the screen I'm looking at on StreamYard. We can see the people on YouTube and the people on Facebook that are commenting. And I'm going to pop over here to the Rumble real quick and just make sure their feed is up and running on Rumble. And we usually don't have many issues on Rumble. They're a little archaic, but yep, we're up and running on Rumble. So hello to all the Rumble people. And then lastly, I'm going to pop over here to LinkedIn. I know 2 days ago our LinkedIn feed was not working. I suspect it is now. Oh, look, and I go to LinkedIn, and who pops up? Jamie Borden. Just his picture pops up. If your agency's still investigating force incidents and outdated methods with outdated methods. So, yeah, I get to look at his mug all the time on LinkedIn. So, and I know I feel sorry, Vaughn. You have to do it in person at his house at the compound. So.
He inspires me. Jamie Borden is one impressive human being. So if you guys haven't been to his training, you guys need to get there. And,
Yeah,
and in fairness, it's one of the most impressive beards in the industry right now. So
I'm sure he appreciates that. That's nice. So we're up and running on LinkedIn though, guys. So we're batting 1,000 right now. So look, people on the stream that are watching the show, we're going to go live radio. According to the MBS clock behind me, we're doing a countdown. So we got 4 minutes and change before we go to satellite radio. If there's anything you want us to talk about, feel free to type it in on the stream, and we will do that, and we'll answer questions as best we can. And I'm having to pop over to different screens in order to see what's going on Rumble, and then of course on LinkedIn as well. But we've got a lot to talk about, and we have some great videos, especially the first story. I don't know if Vaughn's going to get past the video number one. I just don't know if we're going to be able to shut him up. I could tell. The guy, the way this guy's
there's a lot of good stuff that came out of that video, and watching the hearts and compassion of those officers involved, I can tell you that. But yeah, there's a lot of tactical after action reviews that I think a lot of force guys could definitely spend some hours. Love to sit down with the officers and figure out what they were thinking, because that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. Because I bet when they watch the video, I bet there's a lot of ooh, wow, just not realizing. So I wonder. It does seem that the last guy that showed up on the scene, which ended up being the shooter, I believe, he was all business, but reminded me of some other stories we've covered. But we've got and I guess Andre Green asking, is ICE leaving SVU? Ice-T leaving us? What does anybody know what that is, or what he's talking about?
The TV show.
Oh, is it really?
Ice-T.
Ice-T. Okay, sorry. It's really hard to watch.
Not following that one close enough to know. I thought I prepared for every possible question today. I studied our materials. I went through the old Defense of Self and Others, Bible of Law Enforcement Use of Force, and didn't anticipate that one.
It's funny. People okay, we know what you mean now, Andre. Actor Ice-T, we get it. But yeah, so it's very difficult for people that have actually been in law enforcement to watch made for TV law enforcement dramas. There's only been really the one that I have found to be the best, to be honest. I don't know what you guys think, but Blue Bloods I thought was pretty close to home with Tom Selleck, with the exception of the brothers and everybody kind of working together on the same cases, on the same squads and that kind of stuff, But I there was a lot of things I liked about it. I liked that they had the family get-togethers, they prayed before they ate their meals and stuff, and a lot of the stuff. It was pretty real. But there's not been many police programs that I can even watch. So
no, we do that when we sit down with groups of cops. All right, everybody go around the table. What is the most realistic cop show that you've ever watched? And everybody's got their favorite. Mine's always The Wire. I'm like, it mirrored what we were doing throughout the 90s. Yeah, I mean they nailed it.
Yeah, The Wire. Yeah, you're right. They did.
Well, I didn't watch The Wire, so I don't know. I
Oh,
think
well,
I was too, I think
you're missing
I
it.
don't. Well,
I
I
don't
think I
know
was
what
too young.
generation,
What
what
year did it come
generation
out?
cop
Was I
you were.
even born yet?
Yeah, no, you were definitely, but there's only two shows that when I get a rookie in my car and I'll say, you watch Hill Street Blues, and they're like,
Oh
no,
yeah,
I'm like, you got to get out. Don't get back in the car till you watch Hill Street Blues. You know, that's like the
yeah,
original gritty, try to
yeah.
capture the reality. Now you go back and look at it now, it's kind of comical to watch, but back then I just thought, man, this is raw. This is
Well,
gritty
I
policing.
I grew up as a kid, and every week my parents would watch it. They'd have to tell me the same story that Larry Carlton, who did the music, they went to high school with. So every week,
There you
Yeah.
go.
hey, did you know that Larry Carlton we went to high school with?
Really,
All right,
you don't
guys.
say.
7 seconds out. I'm starting the music. Here we go. Going live. All right, guys, and welcome to Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com. My name is Chip DeBlock, and I'm your host. We're a group of law enforcement professionals that talk about today's news and issues, but we do it from a law enforcement perspective. Let me introduce you to the crew. Guys, if you don't mind waiting from the for the video portion of our show, we've got Attorney Von Kleem from Force Science, also former law enforcement officer. He's pretty well known in the professional circuits. So thanks for, I said circuits, not circus. And so thanks so much for being on the show, Vaughn. And I'm coming to you next, Travis. Don't start smiling because I'm getting Vaughn. Yeah, we got Travis Yates. He's got a paper here for me to read. I got to remember. I forget what title I'm supposed to use today. Dr. Travis Yates. He's a retired police major from the Tulsa Police Department. And there's one more thing we're supposed to say. Over 30 years of exemplary law enforcement experience. So there you go.
Now they know you're lying. Now they know you're lying.
So thanks for being on the show, guys. I appreciate it. Hey, a shout out to our sponsors as well, guys. Please support our sponsors. They go to great lengths to make sure that this quality content's available to you. We have our title sponsor, Gulls at Gulls.com. And don't forget that code radio15 in order to get 15% off your next purchase at Gulls.com. We also have CompliantTechnologies.com, our satellite sponsor. And we got on satellite radio last May, and we're killing it. Gunlearn.com, MyMedicare.live, SafeguardRecruiting.com, our streaming sponsor. And yes, if you have an agency, you need recruits, you want to get them the right way so they'll actually stay on and you don't have to just pay them to show up, SafeguardRecruiting.com. And they're also being our streaming sponsor. They're allowing us and helping us stream to over 1 million followers on social media right now during the live show. And we have twobells.com. They built our new online store at leoroundtable.com. Go to our website, leoroundtable.com. Upper right corner, you've got the online store. You can buy cool shirts, hats, mugs like the one behind me and stuff. And we don't charge anything extra. We don't make a dime off of that. We're just trying to get our gear out there. So please check that out. A shout out to Brian Burns for the Tampa Free Press at tampafp.com. Thanks for carrying the content, Brian. Also, Ray Dietrich with formerlawman.com. And also Travis Yates, our very own Travis Yates with lawofficer.com. Thanks to all those entities for helping make this show happen. And now, what in the world are we talking about today? Guys, we have got a main story. You know, they have a tendency to be a little bit deeper. This one it's from Travis, our very own Travis Yates, ethical leadership in a heightened threat environment with everything going on with Iran and the threats to public safety and stuff and sleeper cells and stuff. This is going to be a good article to cover. And we've got a segue into another story after we leave that one. And it is ICE hits back at Boston. We're talking about Boston PD. And they say the police ignored 167 detainer requests in 2025 alone, not 57, which is what they're throwing out there. There's some drama and a story involving that one. And then we got the video. You guys are going to love this. This is where Vaughn's going to lose it. Body cam video show Hartford police officer shooting at a man with a knife 9 times. It's just leading up to that. And Vaughn may not get all animated on it. I certainly am going to, but it's a pretty wild story. And then we got another body cam. It shows a homicide suspect pointing a gun at a deputy and pulling the freaking trigger. And it left me wondering who realized he had the gun and who didn't. And then we got California's epic record-keeping fail. Yeah, we need Governor Newsom for president. Nearly 500,000 criminal cases were not properly reported. What could go wrong with that? I'll tell you at the end. And then we have a canine. You know, I love canine bite videos. Canine catches a career criminal when he tries to hide under the crawl space under our house. And, you know, that's just beautiful because you can't get away. Once that canine latches on, dude, you can't move and fight. It was beautiful. And then police cruiser rolls over after a pit maneuver when stuck on a trailer during a chase. I words can't even describe what the video shows. It's just, we're going to have to cover that. So look, we've got a little less than 8 minutes before we take our first commercial break. So if you guys are ready, let's talk about ethics. Lawofficer.com, ethical leadership in a heightened threat environment. So remember that. Now I'm just gonna do the subtitle right now. They kind of do a lead in for Dr. Yates. No community or infrastructure is immune. Any location where terrorists could achieve retaliation, intimidation, publicity, coercion, or disruption is a potential target. He goes on to say that ethical leadership, vigilance, and community partnerships are imperative to safeguard lives, protect property, and to maintain public trust. And so that's the current threat landscape. And Dr. Travis Yates, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. This is written by Vincent Bove. He's a leadership trainer based in New York City and pretty much trains exclusively NYPD. And what he said was really dead on. First off, leadership is exposed in times of chaos, right? And there has all these events that we see. We've seen failures of leadership. I mean, we could recently look in Arizona and other areas, and leadership needs to be right before chaos happens. And so I think it's what the article is getting at the heart at, right? Good leadership, good decision making. You're going to be proactive in the community. You're going to be proactive with safety. You're going to be proactive with training. You're going to be proactive with resiliency programs. You're going to prepare your officers for what is to come. You're going to prepare your community for what is to come. So leadership is sort of the umbrella of everything. And that's why I think it's the topic to always talk about, because everything falls underneath it. But I think right now in America, we're in a very unique time. We're obviously multiple decades past 9/11. Most of this new generation has never experienced massive terrorism. We've seen sort of the lone terrorism type stuff. What would the country react to? What would law enforcement react to? So I think it's time to prepare now, because I have a feeling there's a few bad actors inside our borders as we speak, unfortunately. And we've seen a couple of those events just in the last week based out of the Iran conflict. So I think it's a good time to remind everybody. I think that's why the article is so solid.
Yeah, Vaughn, the article even mentioned what happened over in Texas, the other day. So.
Yeah, I think that's part of this challenge. When we started talking about, let me back up. A lot of cops, and I think your audience know, cops work really hard to slow things down and create space and buy time when they can, and to de-escalate. And then they got that beat into them. If you use violence, something went wrong. If you use violence, it could have been avoided. And we all know that's not true. There's cognitive aggressors out there who don't want to be de-escalated. Well, we remember when we went to school shootings and we started doing training for school shootings, you're going direct to threat. You're pushing kids off your legs. You're walking over bodies because you've got to stop the dying, right? Now we're going into this heightened threat environment, and we're going to have people who are embedded in our communities who the violence is the purpose. And we're going to see this conflict of tactics now. We're going to have officers, and one of our videos shows this, officers who are going to be trying to negotiate. They're going to be trying to slow down. They're going to be trying, because they don't want to engage in the violence. And with what the threat we're about to see, or that we've already seen, it's more like the school shooting. It's more like there's nothing to talk about here. You've got to get direct to threat. And when we talk about ethical leadership, that is something those leaders need to be very clear that we can't wait for that moment to train you for violence, to be accurate with your firearms, but more importantly, to have the mindset to go direct to threat. We can't wait for that. And it is extraordinarily challenging. And the leaders have got to understand, you got to empower your people for this, to have the skills to confront that violence, the mindset to confront that violence. And then you have to back them up when they do. And we're going to see this get hyper politicized. We're going to certainly see shootings. It's very predictable, where an officer goes direct to threat, stops the violence, and half the country says he should have waited, should have slowed things down. Because, yeah, and I've said enough on it. It's going to be a huge challenge, and leaders have got to get ahead of it.
You know what, Chip? I want to go back about 35 years when I did my interview to get hired in law enforcement at the Tulsa Police Department. The last interview question was, here's a scenario. Now, this sounds very archaic and old school, but this was legitimately the scenario. There's a man in a crowded room holding a Molotov cocktail. Most kids today wouldn't even know what that is. What do you do? And the correct answer is you shoot him. If you didn't say that answer, you would have a hard time getting hired out of that interview. So my question would be, if we ask that question today, what
Oh,
would
yeah.
most of our recruits say? And I think we need to really acknowledge that these so-called techniques that we're training overarching for law enforcement, that I would argue on many times, almost all the time with violent encounters, are not working. We'll watch the videos today where it's not working. Are we going to bring those tactics to terrorists? Because if we do, we're not going to win.
Well, it's funny when you're given that scenario. Well, we're guys, we're visual, right? I mean, that's about the only thing we got going for us. And I'm playing that scenario in my brain.
Not always a positive thing, Chip. That's not always a positive.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. But I'm thinking, are there police leaders out there with some agencies that would expect a different answer in order to get hired with their agency, Travis?
Today?
Yeah.
Are you kidding
100%.
me? Today?
Oh yeah, that's what
they
I mean,
wouldn't hire you. You wouldn't be
yeah.
hired if you took out the threat immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, but you come to Florida, you don't answer the question the same way, you may not get a job. But yeah. But of course,
Well, they do that, and this is not a small thing, because this is going to have to the industry's going to have to evolve. There was a day when I was in the 90s when I was doing policing, and we were still in the thing where they gave you a choice. If you have a choice to go to a robbery in progress, an injury accident, or a past homicide, which one do you prefer to go to? And you're like, if you try to say, well, I want to go to the robbery in progress, I want to identify and close with and destroy evil, that's what I want to do. And they're like, well, no, you should have prioritized the injury accident, because there's people who are injured and you got to be compassionate, and you need to go to that. And so you had to kind of get your mind shifted around. They saw, if you had the mindset to identify, close with, and destroy evil, or identify, close with, and destroy crimes in progress, what do you want to call it? That was the wrong mindset. It evolved out of that mindset. Now you had better get in the mindset that you not only need to identify, close with, and immediately destroy, stop the threat of death or serious bodily injury, right? Yeah. You got to do that immediately. You've got in the background, how am I or am I not going to be supported in this? Yeah. We got to front load that. We cannot wait. And in honest accountability, you cannot have standards you have to have standards that allow an officer to predict the lawfulness of their own behavior, right? And if you are not clearly establishing standards that allow them to predict in advance the lawfulness of their own behavior, you are not serving your officers.
Oh, excellent point. And Vaughn, you still have a choice. If you can't handle police work, you can always be a firefighter. But on that note, it's time to take our first commercial break, so we will be right back. All right, guys, time to talk about our title sponsor, Galls at Galls.com. And, one of the many things that we do really well as cops, we love to buy gear. And when you throw the online option, it's like limitless, right? But I want to remind everybody, but what really is most important here is supporting the companies that actually support law enforcement. I don't know if a company does that better than Galls at Galls.com. Even their motto, like on the banner behind me, it's proud to serve those who serve, which, of course, they do in spectacular fashion. And not only that, they walk the talk by supporting dozens of focused organizations like this radio show. So when you're looking for gear, please support our title sponsor by going to Galls at Galls.com, and they're going to do you one better. For the loyal listeners of the show, they've got a radio code they've given to me to give to you in order to get 15% off your next purchase. It works on most items. It's radio 15. So go to Galls.com, type in radio 15 in order to get 15% off your next purchase. And they have gift cards. Hook up your family, friends, and loved ones with a new Galls gift card, and they will be your new best friends. They pretty much have everything but guns and ammo. Galls.com. Again, that's Galls.com. All right, guys, 2 minutes before we come back to the radio portion. All right, I think we're off to a good start. All right. Anybody got big plans for the weekend coming up?
You got to remind them, hey, Chip, that cops think firefighters are the lesser heroes, but Galls treats them all equally. They serve firefighters, EMS, military, and police. So you heard God loves a firefighter. Well, Galls loves a firefighter too. So we got to make sure
and you have to admire the resilience of the firefighters. My son came off shift this morning, and then he said, "Hey, I'm leaving to go clean houses with my captain." So they do all kinds of things, right? They do all.
They are a worker. Yeah, they have great opportunities. Yeah. Lawn care and all. Yeah. So if I wasn't a cop, I'd probably be a firefighter. Just different mentality. But
I don't think there's an industry I hold in much higher regard than our medical emergency response, the EMS folks. I mean, they don't know what they're walking into, and they've got to get their hands dirty every time. Even cops who show up to that stuff oftentimes get to say, wave in EMS and go, there you go. But those ambulance runners, I have always had massive respect for them. And I love this. Many of them, if not most, could never be cops. But let's all admit there's a ton of cops who could never do what they do.
I'm one, dude.
Massive respect.
No, God bless them. They do stuff that I just simply, I don't even know if I could force myself to do some of that stuff, when it gets to.
That's why a lot of firefighters, to their credit, also are EMS. They're also they're also medical paramedics. That's, if they have that patch, I'm like, you're good people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's required over here now, the cross training, cross certifications. But
my son had to have EMT.
Back to radio. All right, guys, welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. My name is Chip the Block, and I'm your host. We're joined by Attorney Vaughn Klein from Force Science and Travis Shades from the Courageous Police Leader. We just got done talking about, and Travis, I thought that you written the article, so my mistake. I'm glad you cleared that up. But an excellent article and a great segue for our next story. So are you guys okay if we transition over to Boston real quick? We're good with that? Okay. So globalordinancenews.com. ICE hits back at Boston, says police ignored 167 detainee requests in 2025, not 57, which is what they're saying. So this story, it kind of blows my mind. It's a perfect segue. So we're in Boston. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons said that the Boston Police Department ignored 167 federal immigration detainee requests last year, not 57, as reported by the city's commissioner, and that the request included serious criminal charges. Now, Lyons, our ICE director, or acting ICE director, his disclosure on Monday, it comes after last week's 9-4 vote from the Boston City Council, and their vote blocked a formal request from Councilor Ed Flynn, who was trying to require the mayor to provide the city council with specifics on ICE detainee requests that were ignored by the police department in Boston since January of 2024, including whether they pertain to open criminal cases. So the council prevented that from happening. Now, but there's one council member that's true and blue, it sounds like. According to Director Lyons, all of the detainee requests ignored by the city last year relate to illegal immigrants facing criminal charges. So that wraps that up. Now, ICE logged 167 immigration detainers against criminal illegal aliens into the Boston police custody during 2025, far more than the Boston Police Department is admitting to. And Lyons said this in a statement to the Herald. Ironically, Commissioner Michael Cox, so the Boston police chief, says that the police won't honor our detainers because they're committed to building and strengthening relationships and trust within the community. But our ICE director says, how does releasing criminal illegal aliens back into the communities they victimize build trust? It doesn't. And he added that it shows Bostonians that local police leaders are so politically motivated that they would rather release criminals than work with ICE, which completely undermines public safety. So there you go. And that's a connection with the first article. Von Klein.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us who worked with federal agencies over the years, this was never a politicized issue. This was we cooperated with the feds early and often, and it just made sense to do it. Officers to officers, this is not a problem. This is not a patrol level issue. This is certainly a politicized issue. Now, I don't know why they got the number wrong. Sometimes your senior leaders have to rely on whoever provided them the data. So I'm not in a position to assume malevolent intent on the numbers, but it doesn't matter whether it was 167 or 57, right? At the end of the day, they're either supporting the federal officers and in the execution of federal law, or they're not. And it sounds like they're being very overt in that political position they're taking. And you know what? If anybody who's been paying attention knows that this was a bipartisan issue for decades. The Democrats and the Republicans all wanted illegal immigrants out. Whatever you think is the motivation behind the failure to cooperate with the feds, and there's plenty of theories out there, at the end of the day, it is so overtly politicized that and it is going to be the communities that suffer for it. Absolutely. And in fairness, come on, like we all have worked within these communities. They do not want criminals released back into their communities any more than anybody else. This is not a race issue. This is purely politicized because the people who live in those communities do not want these people released either. And that has been the case when we work with Black communities, Hispanic communities, white communities. It didn't matter. They're not idiots, right? They're not engaged in some level of self-destruction that they want criminals released back into their communities.
It's such a disingenuous topic. And Bond's right. The only thing we know is it's political. That's all it is, because everyone's seen the sound bites of Clinton and Obama and Hillary Clinton all talking about worse talk than Trump about illegal aliens, legal criminals. But they're so disingenuous, they play with words. When they say this, they always say what? Immigrants. They never say the word illegal. They try to make people believe that, oh, these are just immigrants, just like Donald Trump's wife, immigrants, right? Same thing they do with voter fraud. You notice the wordplay. They don't say there's no voter fraud. They say there's no evidence of massive voter fraud. Well, what's your definition of massive, right? So it's just wordplay where they think that people are listening to them are stupid. And I guess there's a portion of society that is stupid. I don't know any other way around it. So hopefully the smart people understand it. They see it, they vote accordingly, because I don't think, like Vaughn says, nobody wants criminals let loose in their communities.
You know, John Richardson Carlson in our 51st state there in Canada just weighed in too. He's agreeing with us, so I'm having some fun with the terminology, John. But thanks for watching the show and for backing us up. We appreciate it. You know, we've got a story with a video component, guys, that I cannot wait to get into. We've got 2 minutes left before our second commercial break, so I won't have time to get all the way through it. But are you guys game to handle this first video? It's gonna be a doozy. All right. So I will go through as much as I can before the break. Rumble.com, our favorite law enforcement video channel called This Is Butter. Body cam video shows Hartford police officer shooting at a man with a knife 9 times. So we're in Hartford, Connecticut. So the Connecticut Office of Inspector General released body cam footage of a Hartford police officer firing 9 rounds at a 55-year-old bad guy carrying a knife on Friday morning. Now, the family member of Stephen Jones, and I say bad guy, and he was a bad guy. He had a knife. He was not compliant with police directives, but he was also in a mental health crisis. So there's a 911 call. It's 11 o'clock in the morning, and a family member calls the cops because this guy's having a mental health crisis. So Officer Josu Charles arrives, and he's the first of like 4 or 5 that get there. He gets there at 11:07 in the morning. He finds Jones standing on a front porch stoop at the entrance of an apartment, and he's got a knife in his hand. So the officer begins walking towards, steps out of the car and starts immediately giving commands to this guy, hey, drop the knife. Instead, the guy keeps it in his hand and he starts walking towards the sidewalk where the officer's at. And he's still got the knife in his hand. So when Jones, our bad guy, continues to ignore the officer's request to drop the knife, the officer starts deploying the taser multiple times, and it never seemed to be successful in immobilizing him. And there were a ton of taser deployments. This was one of the tasers that is capable of doing multiple deployments, and it just wasn't working. But now we've got other officers arriving on the scene. This is going to get really interesting, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stick with us. Commercial break. We'll be right back. All right, guys, introducing Compliant Technologies at complianttechnologies.com, and they're committed to providing non-lethal solutions to help officers gain the upper hand safely and rapidly in a humane, low-optics manner, utilizing what they're called their CD3, which stands for Conductive Distraction and De-escalation Technology. Now, their flagship product, we all know, especially Travis and I, it's called the Glove. It's helped officers not just tens of thousands of times, but they've had over 250,000 deployments with no injuries or deaths. That's amazing. They've actually achieved non-lethal status in an arena that predominantly can only offer less lethal results. And when it comes to weapons retention, transitioning to your sidearm or conducted energy weapon, the Glove at complianttechnologies.com, they have virtually eliminated weapons confusion. So stay ahead of the game with Compliant Technologies and the revolutionary CD3 that hundreds of agencies have already turned to nationwide. And friends, take it from me, when it comes to safety, this is one of the most common sense, hands-on solutions that's ever come to the market. Go to complianttechnologies.com today and tell them that Chip and Travis sent you. Again, complianttechnologies.com. You'll be glad that you did. And we got 4 minutes, guys, before we come back to the radio portion of the show. All right. Good stuff. All right, and like I said, we are going to be meeting with Tampa Police, and trying to get that glove with Tampa Police Department. So we'll see how that goes. And I'd love to get them to get their door in the foot of Tulsa. We're relatively the same. We have 1,000 sworn in Tampa. You're relatively the same size in Tulsa, aren't you? Aren't you, Travis?
They should be, but they're not close.
Not even close. No. Yeah, I think we're right about there. But I tell you, a lot of people want to come to Tampa from all over the country. They really have the pick of the litter. The pay's good. The cost of living's fairly is decent. But the pension, is the pension drives a lot of people to our agency, and then the sheriff's office, they're in the state retirement system, which operates a little bit differently. So, but yeah, Tampa's in a good position where they've kind of got a lot of guys wanting to get there instead of the other agencies. So I think we used to have the top two for pensions. I think we're considered the top one in the country, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, our firefighter and police pension, I think we've got about $4 billion in it right now. It's crazy. It's crazy. It does so well because we don't live that long. But the nice thing is that, having the pension stuff, and if anything happens to me, my wife gets my full pension. And when you do your pension, you can kind of figure out how you want to do that. But she gets my full pension if anything happens to me. And you can set it up to where they get a portion of it, and then you get more money while you're alive. But I gave my wife the full ride. I didn't want to have to worry about that. So it's all good.
Assuming she's outliving you, huh?
Well, she's 8 years younger. So yeah. And she tells me that constantly, that she will outlive me. So I'm just assuming that she's going to be correct.
I would be worried if I was you, if she's guaranteeing that.
She is Colombian, so I have to sleep with one eye open and keep the edge weapons out of the bedroom. So yeah. What do you do? We got a little less than 2 minutes, guys. I can't wait to get back to the story. So anything interesting going on with you guys? I mean, I've already told you about relaunching the Leo Affairs site. I can't give out the URL yet, but I'll hopefully be able to do that before the end of the week. So.
Yeah, no, we're staying busy. We got our conference coming up. I think I'd let you guys know that. All you folks listening, I think you remind them later, but September 22nd through 24th in Austin. So for those of you who are going to make it, we had 81 speaker proposals, and they were phenomenal. We had to pare that down. We ended up doing a 2-tier. So we're going to have two speakers going at one time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we've already got over, I think, roughly 80 pre-registered, and we haven't even announced who the speakers are yet. It was tough to pare them down. I think Dr. Yates, you submitted, right? You're going to be out there for the conference?
I hope to. Yeah, I hope to.
So you guys will hear from Dr. Yates out there. I know he was selected, and as much as I tried to not select him because I knew him and I didn't want to be accused of bias, like, it's just too good of stuff. We gotta get him in there.
I know. I if I was selected, I'm fortunate because it's really a high end conference. So I'm very, very blessed.
If you guys get there, there's $100 off coupon code. So just remember, get on the Force Science website, get registered early. It is going to fill up, like I say, I live this stuff every day, and I'm looking forward to this conference. That's how good these speakers are.
All right, forcescience.com, guys. Make sure you check that out. It's a great opportunity. Going back to radio. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. My name is Chip DeBlock, and I'm your host. We're joined by Dr. Travis Chase from Tulsa Police Department, retired as a major, and also Attorney Vonnie Killeen with Force Science, also former police officer. We've been talking about a body cam video in Hartford, Connecticut, and we've got about 4 or 5 Hartford cops that show up. We've got a guy in mental crisis. He's got a knife. He's not following police orders to drop the knife, and so we've got one officer that's giving the guy commands. He leaves the porch, walks through the yard, and now he's, on the sidewalk, and now he's by the cop's police car. The cop's backing up. And I initially thought the guy was going to try to get into the police car. It was kind of hard to tell what he was doing by the driver's door because the view was obstructed. But our cop keeps verbalizing, that he doesn't want to shoot the guy. We have a second officer, James Prignano. He arrives on the scene, requests the bad guy drop the knife. And so at this point, this officer, keeps saying, and I've got my show notes, but from memory, saying something to the effect of, "Hey, we don't want to shoot you." And so the bad guy starts charging this second officer, while the first officer was cycling tasers like they're going out of style. This guy starts charging the officer. I was amazed at the officer drew his gun, but I never saw him pointed at the suspect until much later. So he's being charged. The suspect's taking swipes at him with the knife, and the dude's just got his gun, from my recollection, just pointed down at the ground, and he's backing up. And so the guy continues to charge the officer. He's backing up, and now we got more officers, showing up on the scene. Jacqueline Torres and Joseph Magnano, and we finally have Magnano, showing up on the scene, saying, "You're going to get shot." And Magnano walks backward to get distance between him and the bad guy, who's now approaching him at an intersection. Last time, drop the knife, drop it, Magnano said, and then he fires 9 shots at the bad guy, who ends up going to the ground. He suffered numerous gunshot wounds, and he remains in the ICU in critical condition, which I find that pretty amazing. Now, going back to my show notes, I'll let you guys talk about it, but I kind of, I'm talking, the taser deployment's not a big deal. They just weren't effective. But the officer that was backing up and that didn't really raise his gun up until much later, and he was not the shooting officer. The communications that he was given is that we don't want to shoot you. And then our officer with the initial body cam, the backdrop for him when he finally switched over to firearm, it was a horrible backdrop. And people need to realize that if I can create a verbal picture for you, there were civilians freaking everywhere, and they were approaching the bad guy while cops are surrounding him, giving him commands. So not only do you have our main guy with the body cam, his backdrop, if he was to use the lethal force because he had a gun in his hand, the backdrop was not just one, it was multiple civilians or cops. And that never really changed much from what I saw. And even when the shooting actually happened, there were just no one. I never heard a command for anyone to tell the civilians to stay back, get back, or anything like that. And yet we heard 9 shots. We don't know how many times the bad guy was shot or hit. So we can assume he's probably hit 1 time out of 9. But I'll let you guys take it from here. Just a wild one. Vaughn, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So for those who listening, what police are looking for when they can use deadly force is an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury, which loosely means that the man has the intent or the willingness, the means, which is a knife, the opportunity, or the ability, which is a physical ability, upright and mobile, and then the opportunity. And what was interesting about this is if you watch this video, if you imagine a green light going on, like a go signal, as soon as there's lawful authority to use deadly force, that go signal goes on in the very beginning of this thing. This guy comes off the porch, is given multiple commands. He's being told in actually nice tones of voice, I don't want to shoot you, drop the knife. Hey, buddy, drop the knife. Uses his name, drop the knife. You can tell the officer's trying to engage in good de-escalation, persuasion, communication tactics. The officer simply does not want to shoot this guy. And in tasers, so when we look at the use of a taser against somebody with a knife, when you look at physical means, this is probably one of those cases where it was a good idea, except, and only because the guy was moving so slow, he was obese, he was kind of hobbled as he was walking. So I could see why a reasonable officer might think, okay, I'm at least willing to assume the risk. He doesn't have to. It is 100% compassionate on his point. It is restraint. It is an assumption of risk. But I could see why under these circumstances he was willing to do that. Typically, though, when you do try to use a taser and assume the risk, you have lethal coverage. You have another officer there with lethal coverage so that the taser doesn't work and you can respond with lethal coverage. So a lot of agencies are training that. That is saving suspects from the consequences of their own decisions, which means we are trying to reduce the number of lawful shootings. If the officer would have just shot him initially, it would have been likely would have been privileged. And again, I'm just looking at a video. So I'm happy to say I've got a lot of unanswered questions still, but I could see why he did what he did. But now when like Chip mentioned, when you're making a decision to use lethal force, backstop matters, right? You got to know who's on the other side of that bullet that you're firing, not just the suspect. What were the houses? What were the civilians? What were the other officers? And when the other officers started to show up, what I noticed is like, what changed for them? What additional information did they have that made it more reasonable for them to go ahead and use deadly force instead of a taser? And one of the things I noticed, and I don't know what the officer's perception was or what they relied on, but while this guy appeared hobbled in the beginning, moving very slowly, he was obese. He was just kind of zombieing along, as I call it, as he was hobbling along. There, by the time the other officer shows, he had taken multiple short burst sprints. And so while he was hobbled, if he would have gotten within a 15 feet or less, those short sprints, he would have that knife on top of an officer before any officer could stop him. And stop him means not just shoot him, but shoot him in a way where the wounds can take effect, right? So you don't just shoot somebody, you have to shoot him in a way that the wounds can take effect to stop the threat. And at close distances, there is zero guarantee that happens. And so every one of those officers who let that guy get within 10 feet, 6 feet at times, was doing so because none of them wanted to kill this man. None of them wanted to shoot this man, is a fair reading of it. And so you saw an awful lot of restraint, an awful lot of talking. And I want everybody to know that while that was occurring, that green light was flashing. They could have shot him at any time and would have been privileged in that use of force. And yet they did. So that final officer, he decided there had enough. I don't know what he decided. Let me back up. I could see objectively in the video that the circumstances had changed significantly from what the first officer was dealing with. And Chip hit it on the head. There was now more civilians around. There was crossfire problems. The guy had done multiple sprints that showed that he was capable of closing that distance if he decided to. And the officer decided it's on balance, he was no longer willing to assume the risk. And that is a discretionary call. Deadly force, just because you can, doesn't mean you have to. And you saw that in this case. They could have lawfully used deadly force much earlier. And at some point, the balance just shifted and the officer decided to engage.
You know, Chip, we bring guns to knife fights. That's what we do. And when I first saw this video, I immediately started screaming at myself. But the more I thought about it, the more I sort of landed where Vaughn has landed, which I appreciate the empathy. I appreciate the fact that officers do not want to use deadly force. That's something we don't want to do. We wouldn't have even recruited them to be in law enforcement. We don't have that violent nature like criminals do. But I think there's a disconnect here. You know, I mean, de-escalation, I don't want to throw de-escalation out because obviously it's a wonderful tool. But I've yet to see solid evidence where de-escalation de-escalates potential violence. It's great in nonviolent encounters. It's great in mental crises. But when someone has weapons and they are shown intent to commit violence, I've yet to see the de-escalation work. And that's what they were doing. You know, they told him 10 times in the first 30 seconds to drop the knife. At one point, he said, "Come on, baby, please drop the knife. We don't want to shoot you." And they just kept begging and begging it. But where I think the disconnect is in this profession is when those de-escalation tactics, and it's a tactic, it's not something that's guaranteed. When that tactic doesn't work, where do we transition to the next tactic? And we're really failing to do that. I think some of us have been sold a lie that just de-escalate and this works every time. Just like a taser, it doesn't work every time. In fact, I would make an argument. I have yet to see any evidence whatsoever, like I said, where a situation like this where it worked. I mean, we watch videos here every day, Chip. We haven't seen it work yet, right? We typically see something like this. And so I think we have to start thinking about different tactics. I agree with Vaughn. I mean, there was a lot of different ideas we could do. And I don't want to talk, you know, based on what I know now because of the time, but we ought to be thinking about in this profession, are there other options in shooting people? Do we have ballistic shields where we could knock the guy down? Do we have cars where we could clip them? You know, where it typically doesn't kill them. Yeah, that's all. The car's considered deadly force, but have we encouraged and supported this type of training to where that may be better to do early on than our only option is the gun with a knife fight? And so I think very few you could do that in. This one I think you could because this guy was kind of like not moving very quickly at first, right? And I think that's why the officers had some confidence to spend a little longer on this. I think there's a lot of things to think about coming out of this video.
Yeah. And I would add what we do in our realistic de-escalations, we talk about thoughts, emotions, and behavior, this TEB model.
So Vaughn, we got to go to the commercial break. So I'll tell you what, hold that thought. We got a gun learn coming up in a second. We'll be right back. All right, guys, time to talk about GunLearn at gunlearn.com. And as law enforcement officers, we deal with guns and ammo every day, but it's what we don't know about them that gets us into trouble. Injuries, civil lawsuits, accidental discharges, misidentifications, lost prosecutions, and disciplinary issues. But gunlearn.com, they have your back. You can quickly become extremely firearm knowledgeable by simply learning 14 training modules from the convenience of your home or your office, or by attending a live seminar at gunlearn.com. You can also become a safe, accurate, and competent certified firearm specialist like our very own Captain Brett Bartlett and also attorney Ken Apianco. The course has had huge success in raising the bar of firearm knowledge, and GunLearn has been a trusted source since way back in 2011 by gun manufacturers, federal agencies, forensic organizations, and even police departments nationwide. Now, the founder, Dan O'Kelly, has got a deal for you if you have your own agency. If you're a chief or sheriff, you can actually host a seminar for absolutely no cost. It's an amazing opportunity. You can go to gunlearn.com to get more information. Again, that is gunlearn.com. All right, guys, 2 minutes before we come back to the radio portion. All right, yeah, good coverage on that video. Not easy. So figure it's probably just two guys in the world that could do that, and it's you two.
And Jamie Borden.
Well, but we'd still be talking, or he'd still be talking.
So Vaughn, the behavior case that I sent you the report on?
Yeah.
I didn't give the update on that, did I? The Friday before trial, the judge threw out talking about policy, threw out talking about training, and then threw out the expert witnesses, myself and Jeff from California. Jeff, I forget his last name.
Manager?
Jeff Martin.
Martin.
Oh.
Yeah. So the judge said, of course, the judge is in on it, right? With the prosecutor. The judge said, those guys have nothing to offer here. They've overinflated their resumes, and we don't need them here. And so they stacked the deck against him, took all his really evidence away, followed policy and his training and this and that, right? Charged him with a public quarreling, a felony that brings up to 20 years, like he was at a bar fight. Yeah. So they tried to stack the deck against him. The jury took 2 hours and acquitted him, and they were in the hallway hugging him and apologizing afterwards. So they saw right through it.
Good.
Wow.
They saw right through it.
See, the judge was right. They didn't need you.
They didn't.
I recently, unfortunately, got the judge said, "Hey, your resume is excellent, but we just don't see how what you know applies to a civilian." So I was conditionally admitted. If certain facts came in, then he would allow me to testify.
15 seconds.
But ultimately, those facts didn't come in, so he did not let me testify.
That's not why the judge kicked us, though, Vaughn. He didn't kick us to help the officer.
Yeah, well, no, they didn't. He didn't kick us. He didn't kick me to help the defendant.
2 seconds, guys. Here we go. All right, guys, and welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. My name is Chip the Block, and I'm your host. We're joined by Attorney Vaughn Killeen from Source for Science, and also Dr. Travis Yates, retired police major from the Tulsa Police Department. We've been talking about a use of force in Connecticut. We have a guy with a mental health crisis. He's got a knife, and I just saw Vaughn's hand coming at me like it was the the glove, and I got a little nervous there for a second, Travis.
Now my auto focus isn't working.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There he is.
You looked better before.
But we've been talking about this guy in mental crisis. He ended up getting shot by the police after, as Vaughn did a great job of with I call them like word pictures, talking about the green light went off very early, and there were so many. I don't necessarily want to say opportunities, because I don't look at them as opportunities, but there were so many justified instances, or so many the window for a justified shoot was there long before they took advantage of it. So anyhow, a great breakdown of the shooting. Anything else in reference to this, guys, that you want to add?
Just very quickly. So I think Travis brought up a great point about recognizing. I teach a class called The Bridge from De-Escalation to Use of Force, and it answers that question. Why did you stop talking to force compliance? What are the circumstances that are appropriate for de-escalation efforts, like containment, control, contact, communication, and ultimately consent? Like Travis said, not everybody's able or willing to be de-escalated. And so we got to very quickly recognize, and when somebody is engaged in thoughts, emotions, or behavior that are inconsistent with high levels of de-escalation success. And so we train officers in the TEB model, thoughts, emotion, behaviors, not because we're diagnosing them, but we can start to see whether we have sufficient containment control, psychological and physiological contact, and then ultimately, do you have the communication skills to do it? So when we have cognitive aggressors, which is what Travis, what Dr. Yates was describing, a lot of people police come in contact with, violence is the purpose, and we're not going to de-escalate them, right? There are certain circumstances with enough time, when you have discretionary time, that you can engage in all sorts of things because you can do it safely. You got time on your side. You can let drugs metabolize through their system if that's the problem, when you have discretionary time. But when you have a guy like this who's mobile, who's armed, you got crowds forming, you got crazy backstops, you do not have discretionary time because you don't have sufficient containment and you don't have sufficient control. Without those two things, you don't have discretionary time. And then that's when you transition from attempting verbal persuasion to forced compliance, right? You've got to use a reasonable amount of force to overcome that threat. So we saw all of that. And I think Dr. Yates is pointing out, we have got to ensure not just that the officers understand that, but the communities who are standing in judgment of those officers have to understand not everybody's able or willing to be de-escalated.
You're so right. You're so right on that point. And Vaughn, while you're talking, I'm looking at your shirt. It's very, very small, but does it say Gauls on your chest?
It does say Gauls, because I'm a Gauls advisory board member and a huge fan of Gauls. And I tell you what, I still see Gauls signs and remember the days when we were flipping through those Gauls magazines and ordering our new boots and Gauls. That's why earlier you were saying Gauls loves law enforcement. I'm like, well, you know what? They love firefighters too. Yeah. They love EMS. They love their military. Yeah, they're doing a phenomenal job. They really are. So yeah, this is my Gauls shirt today. Shout out to Gauls and the team that we have over there.
Yeah, they're good people. And Mike Fadden, great CEO. I'm very impressed with Mike Fadden and what he's done with the company. And great history. They've got a lot going on. And now they're making their Mission Made pants. I've got a pair of their Mission Made tactical pants. I actually wore those when Travis and I got gloved, and they're double stitched. I mean, there's so many things. I could be here like all day talking about how well these are made compared to other tactical pants I've had. And I just bought a pair of their waterproof Danner boots. And I took them to Georgia. Remember last time I went to Georgia, I blew my knee out, right? I slipped in the woods and I fell. And no issues this time in Georgia with my new Danner boots and stuff. But they've actually got some exclusive, like shirts, some neat partnerships. And if you want to get certain shirts, you have to go through Gauls in order to get them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you go to thegauls.com and kind of look and see what they've got going on with, and I think everything that they're making themselves is mission made. I think is what the title is they're using, mission made, like those tactical pants that I have. So I encourage everybody on the show to check those out. And remember, when you're making the purchase, use that code radio15 in order to get 15% off. So if you guys are ready, we have another story that I'd love to cover, and it's going to be pretty sensational here. Rumble.com, this is Butters, the channel. Body cam shows homicide suspect pointing a gun at a deputy, pulling the trigger. Now, we're in Charlotte County, so not too far from where I'm at here in Florida. A wanted homicide suspect pointed a loaded gun at a Charlotte County Sheriff's deputy, pulls the trigger during the arrest attempt on February the 20th. According to the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office. Now, the gun did not fire because there was not chamber. There was no round in the chamber. Deputies, they stopped the rental car after observing a traffic violation, and then they get intelligence that the two suspects connected to a Sarasota burglary were traveling through Charlotte County. So they identified the driver. The driver is Amy Lee, but the passenger, doesn't want to talk, right? Doesn't identify himself. And so, and then they both initially refused to get out of the car. So later they get both guys out. Remember, we know who the driver is. They're trying to identify the passenger, and a member of the sheriff's strategic targeted area response unit. They end up finding through a criminal history check and all kinds of stuff that the passenger, they believe it's Brian Huson. And deputies learned that he had multiple warrants, including homicide from the state of Pennsylvania. So when deputies tried to arrest him, he starts resisting. So we have a guy drawing his taser while the other two deputies are wrapped up with the bad guy. And bad guy breaks free from those two deputies. And then the third deputy wearing the body cam with the taser, guy produces a gun out of nowhere and points it and pulls the trigger right when the deputies tase him. The guy runs a few feet, goes down. He's still got the gun in both hands, and they say he's trying to rack around in the chamber. No one shot him. They go hands on and disarm him. And he had fentanyl and all kinds of stuff on him, but I got to wonder whether they knew he had the gun. I'm curious what you guys think. I don't know. But this is great. And this is Florida where we shoot, it's not like California where, they live the fight another day. I was so surprised the guy didn't get shot. Travis.
Well, I guess sometimes we bring a taser to a gunfight, but I'll leave that one alone right now. This is something that I talk about every day. I've been studying this at a high level for well over a year now. So here's the facts. You stop a car. They refuse to get out of the car. Probably argued at the same time, but we don't have that video portion. And then you find out they're burglary suspects. Get some handcuffs on them right then and there. What are we waiting for? Why are we waiting for the homicide warrant to come out? You have enough right there that tells you something's up. Let's secure the hands of what can hurt us. When we look at this research, those combinations, burglary suspects, refusing to get out, non-compliance, arguing, that's all it takes to secure somebody because of the potential of what could happen next. And we wait too long. We let him stand on the side of the road. We give him time to make these decisions that ultimately we're very fortunate there wasn't a round chamber in the chamber when he shot that gun.
Wow. Yeah, we'd be having a different conversation then. Vaughn?
Yeah, no, there's a couple things I think. So there's from an officer safety tactical after action review. Look, every tactical engagement we can make better in hindsight, right? I don't know what these officers knew about him. I don't know how he was presenting at the scene initially, but here's what we know. They were where they were when they decided to take control of him, when they decided to put him in handcuffs, like Travis says. They decided to go hands-on. Okay. Other officers might have decided to put him in a position of disadvantage at gunpoint first, to check compliance first, to get control of the hands first. Okay, that's probably very common, actually, like with a homicide suspect. But you didn't see that, so fine, they are where they are. The things they didn't do were for officers' safety reasons, right? I mean, the things that they could have done would have been for officer safety. They didn't do them. But once he decides to put his left hand in his pocket and they realize he's about to go for a gun, it is not time to try to outdraw him. He can pull the gun in 1/10 of a second, on average 1/4 of a second. But we've seen them pull it in 1/10 of a second. These officers can't get their guns out of their holsters any faster than probably 1.7 seconds, and some much slower than that.
They don't even see it for 1/3 of a second.
They don't even see it for 1/3 of a second. So they will be shot. And if we showed you two photos side by side, they will not have moved by the time they were shot because their brain never even recognized a change. What they did then, I would say, if you see the guy and you believe he's about to draw, you attack the weapon. You attack that arm. You got to get after it. And that's what they did. Two officers went in. One went for his left arm. It simply was ineffective. He broke free and was able to pull the gun anyway. But I do not fault them at all. They were where they were. He went for a gun. Excellent. They attacked the weapon.
Excellent. Von Kleem, for Science, Travis Yates, Courageous Police Leader. Guys, want to mention our sponsors again. Galls.com, ComplyTechnologies.com, Governor.com, on Medicare.life, Safeguard Recruiting, and TwoBells.com. Thanks for watching the show. We'll see you guys back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. And we're going to keep it running for another minute. In case you guys want to get anything out, we got like another minute and a half for the satellite radio portion of the show. But man, wow, what a great show. I can't imagine if that thing would have been racked, that would not have been pretty.
Yeah, no, and those two officers, every one of them would have felt bad, and every one of them, we used to have an officer down section. Remember in Police Marksman, Travis, or both of you, right? Police Marksman, the officer down section, and I grew up thinking my goal is to never find myself in that. I don't want to be lessons learned. I don't want my death to be lessons learned. So these guys, had that guy gotten shot, they would have looked at this video and said, if we ever do this again, we're going to do it different. We don't need to wait for that. We can all front load that heuristic, right? Learn from this now. And that
all three of them could have got shot. Yeah. I mean, Travis, if the officers, we had two on one initially, if one of those officers would have had the glove, different outcome.
Yeah. If the glove was on, no question. Even the first one with the guy with the knife, because you saw at one point the guy with the knife, there was a guy that was behind him that could have made contact with him without him knowing. That glove would have been effective there as well.
Yeah. We got to get that glove in more hands.
Hey, Travis Yates, mission made, right? Gall's mission made pants. We've been bragging about them. You got a pair?
I don't, but I will get some.
Get me some. Get me your sizes. I know people at Gall's that are looking forward to get you in a pair so they can hear your experience. So send me your sizes. We're gonna get them over to Gall's, and we're gonna make sure you get a pair of mission made pants.
So I know you said you wanted Travis Yates sizes. So does that imply that
I lost my Lululemon contact because my wife used to work at Lululemon.
Yeah. And your Harry's razor. That's the other one. We may get a Harry's razor in your hand.
That's right.
Well,
both of you.
My recommendation. I've got the.
I was voting Democrat when I was shopping at Lululemon. That's how hardcore I was.
So Travis, I recommend the tan, which is what Mike Fadden hooked me up with, and I love them. I love them. And I can wear them. You know, if you wear black, you can get black, but you know, I can wear tan with a lot of different colors, and they just look sharp, you know. So that's what I would recommend. But hey, I'm gonna end the stream. So streamers, thank you guys so much for watching the show. Thanks for all the commentary and stuff. We appreciate it. John Richardson, Carlson, we appreciate it, and MBS and Chili and all the guys over on Rumble. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Oh, Travis Yates had a pair of gloves to give away. Who would he give them to? Well, I'm assuming Tulsa. That's what MVS wants to know.
I would give it to a department that would be welcoming to that technology, and it may or may not have been Tulsa.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I would want to give it to a department that would recognize the value of them.
Yeah, I'm telling Tampa guys, if you don't use them, dude, you know, we'll find somebody who will. You know, but I
think Tyler Sexton, Topeka Police Department might find some way to use those things. Topeka Police, Kansas.
Yep.
If they're looking for a pair of somebody who wants to get after and try some new technology, there's your point of contact.
All right. We're going to let you go, streamers. Thanks, guys, for watching.